Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum and I'm here today at the Morphy Auction House taking a look at a couple of really interesting German line-throwing conversion guns. There's not any original documentation on these, but we can be pretty certain contextually what these are meant to do. These are Gewehr 98 rifles that were converted by the factory at Mauser, almost certainly, into this configuration for use as, like I said, line-throwing guns. The idea is, if you're going to, say, dock a U-boat to a supply vessel, or any time in naval service when you want to have two ships come together for, exchange crew, exchange supplies, whatever, well, you need to get a line between them, and generally you don't want to maneuver the ships under power close enough that you could actually just throw a line by hand. So what you do instead is you get what is basically the antique military, well, not antique, the old school military version of a potato cannon, and you tie a string to the potato and you shoot it off to the other ship. And that's what line throwing guns are, and that's what these conversions were. And we'll look at these up close, but one thing you can definitely see from back there is that the length of pull is really long on these. These stocks are of exaggerated length. And that's done very deliberately because the recoil from something like this is going to be really significant. This is on par with rifle grenade launching because while you're using a blank cartridge to actually propel the line, you're throwing a lot of weight out forward. And the more weight you throw forward, the more recoil you get in return. So these conversions were done, we think, by Mauser. The longer stock is very deliberate, and then the front end is heavily reinforced to be able to handle that recoil. We'll look at that up close. In fact, why don't we do that right now, because there are a couple other really curious elements that I want to show you about these. All right, let's start with this one that has the vent holes out on front. First off, both of these have threaded muzzles. We don't know exactly why, but I think it's a pretty easy deduction. It would be you're going to be throwing a line, a rope, so you're probably going to have a small starter cable and some sort of weight inside the bore that's going to get shot out, and then you're going to need some way to mount a spool of rope to follow. And I suspect this threading was to mount some sort of like easy, think of a fishing line reel, basically. In fact, I have a previous video on a Martini conversion harpoon gun, and that thing had a similar sort of bracket that attached to the muzzle of the gun that held the rope that was being thrown. So anyway, that's why the muzzle's threaded, I expect. Why the vents? Really don't know, unless it's some detail of the launching apparatus. Anyway, if we look at the action, this is a standard Gewehr 98 rifle action. That marking is still present on the receiver there, Gewehr 98. And they scrubbed the markings off the top of the receiver on both of these guns, but on this one, you can still just barely read it, and it is Mauser Oberndorf. And right here, we can make out just enough to be able to say that that is a 1914 date. So this was a 1914 manufactured rifle, and this conversion required basically replacing the barrel and constructing a completely new stock, because this is not a converted existing stock. The business end of the conversion up here, you can see it has this really wide added chunk of wood with the metal cap around it. That is to absorb the recoil force from this line thrower. So if you just had a little narrow stock here, there wouldn't be very much surface area to absorb the recoil, and you would almost certainly damage the thing in fairly short order. So by widening it out, it can absorb the recoil. That's a good thing. And then this extra long buttstock is on there for basically the same reason, not so much for the durability of the gun, but for the durability of the shooter. This means when you're shooting it, your face is back here, and you're not in danger of taking the back end of the receiver right in the nose. These are going to recoil enough, and I say this having fired some pretty stout recoiling guns, that you don't want your face up here where it would normally be sitting on a Mauser 98. This extended stock is a really good idea. Now, here is an interesting little detail that I want to point out that I noticed. So this gun is serial number 689 on the receiver, and it's 689 on the bolt and the end cap. And I saw that, and I thought, huh, this is pretty much a matching gun. And lo and behold, the floor plate, the trigger guard, both 689 and just 89, which is, you'd only get the last two digits there. This was an all-matching gun when this conversion was done. And that certainly suggests that it was a factory conversion job. You know, they didn't have mismatched rifles that they scrounged off a battlefield or something. They took a batch of rifles, right off the factory lot, probably, to convert into these line throwers. And then this one is painted A196, which is some sort of rack or unit mark. But exactly what it means, I don't know. Now, this gets more interesting when we look at the second rifle. So this one is serial number 687, also a Gewehr 98, of course. And as I continued looking, I realized the bolts matching, 687. The trigger guard and the magazine floor plate are also 87 and 687. And then lo and behold, this one is A194. There is a 2-digit difference between both that rack number and the serial number on the two of these line throwers. And that leads me to wonder why the difference in the bore setups, because not only are they a little bit different in configuration, this one having the vents and this one not, but they also measure out differently. So this one is a 10-inch long barrel with a 2-inch bore diameter. This one's a little longer at 10.5 inches, but it's also narrower. It's got a 1 3/4 inch bore diameter. So if these were made at the same time, which it certainly seems like they were, why the difference? And I just simply don't have a good answer for that. I'm very curious about it now. Now, in all that excitement, I realized I didn't actually show you how these work mechanically. There's not much to it, but it's worth pointing out. We have a basic Mauser 98 rifle action here. They didn't change any of that. They did give it a wooden floor plate, so there's no magazine to be used. And then when you fire, all that gas pressure from the blank comes up inside the cylinder and throws whatever line throwing device you have in there out. You can notice down here, right inside there, the inside of the barrel is also serial numbered on this one, 689. It's a little fuzzy. The camera doesn't want to focus on the back end there, but it is in fact 689. Well, I really wish I had some original provenance or documentation to these things, because it'd be great to know, like, which ships were they going to? Were they used? How many of these were actually done? As you saw, it certainly looks like these were two guns right almost sequential out of a series that were converted. Unfortunately, sometimes we get the artifacts passed down, but we just don't have further data. So we do know that these came out of a very reputable collection. These came from the Geoffrey Sturgess collection. So, and they are being sold here at Morphy's as individual lots. They're not a pair. So if you'd be interested in either one, or perhaps both, take a look at the description text below. You'll find a link there to ForgottenWeapons.com. From Forgotten Weapons, you can find links to the catalog pages for both of these guys. Take a look at Morphy's high-res pictures, their price estimate, their description, all that sort of stuff. Thanks for watching.